Stillman, who is the Director of Programs at Sonoma Clean Power, and he works directly with the CEO to set strategy for distributed resources and customer programs. Mr. Stillman also works closely with program staff and the Director of Power Services to develop and evolve Sonoma Clean Power's integrated resource plan. He was formerly the Deputy Chief Engineer at the Sonoma County Water Agency, and he graduated from Sonoma State University with a bachelor's degree in civil engineering. He has over 28 years of experience in the public sector in planning, design, and construction management. His responsibilities include development and management of all infrastructure and renewable energy projects and programs. So welcome, Cordel.
This is going to be trouble. I'm vertically challenged when it comes to microphones. Cordel Stillman, Director of Programs, Sonoma Clean Power. And I do want to apologize in advance. I've never given a presentation that's more than 15 minutes long. So this might be a little disjointed, and you'll have to bear with me in my quirky sense of humor. So when I was preparing this, and they said I was a keynote speaker, that kind of made me a little nervous. So I went back and dredged my memory through all the keynote speakers I've ever observed through my extensive career, and there have been a lot of them. And I came up with 5 bullet points of things that keynote speakers have to do. And one is tell you things you already know, brag about the things you've done, try not to bore people when you're bragging about the things you've done, hopefully inspire you with tales of success, and then don't mention any of your failures. That's important. I got one laugh from Lauren. That's all I needed. So let's give you a little bit about my personal journey to greenness. I'm a civil engineer. That's deeply ingrained in me. My father was a civil engineer. I spent 31 years in the civil engineering industry. And initially, I was a climate denier. I could not understand how little puny human beings could have an effect on the huge ecosystem that was the Earth. And fortunately, I've come around a bit, more than a bit. And a lot of that was due to a program that one of my bosses sent me to. I had a very progressive boss at the water agency, and I'll tell you a little bit more about him later. But 10 years ago, he sent me to a local program we had in Sonoma County called the Leadership Institute for Ecology and the Economy. And this gave their students, it was a 6-month course. You met once a month, and you had a project you had to do and all sorts of things. But every month, they took you on a step-by-step journey through an area of sustainability, whether it was energy or water or food systems or social justice or greenhouse gas emissions. But every month you went through another program. And that pretty much ruined my life. I was perfectly happy being a profligate waster of gasoline. I had to sell my wonderful sports car. I now get in constant fights with my wife over her running the water, turning the lights off, planning trips more efficiently, and it's been a disaster. But fortunately, my conscience is clear, and that's I guess there's value in that. And I'm going to give you a little, again, more background about my particular journey. And I spent 20 years working for the Sonoma County Water Agency. I worked for the Sonoma County Public Works Department for another 9 years before that. And that agency, the water agency, serves 600,000 people in Sonoma and Marin counties, and supplying water to that's most of the incorporated areas of that region, responsible for sanitation and flood control. So I spent 20 years designing water and wastewater and flood control infrastructure. But the water agency happens to be one of the most progressive water agencies in the state of California. They have an amazing leadership group there, not just the staff at the water agency and the general manager, but the board of directors, who gives them a lot of latitude to do things that are outside of what generally water agencies do. Water agencies are notoriously conservative. In fact, the water agency we call the rest of the water folks the water buffaloes, because they just don't move. They don't do anything different. They just go in a straight path. Some of the things that we did at the water agency was carbon-free water by 2015. This was a goal we set for ourselves in 2009, and we ended up achieving it in 2014. Now, initially, it was assigned to me to get us to carbon-free water, and we were, I think, the second largest energy user in Sonoma County. Pumping water, as you all know, takes a lot of energy. So we took a look at our portfolio, and we were doing pretty well, but we immediately started building solar. So we built 2 megawatts of solar. We started investigating all sorts of other types of renewable energy that we could incorporate into our portfolio. And in the end, it turned out to be ridiculously easy to get to carbon-free water. All of the water, right now, all the water that we pump is from energy is from sources that are carbon-free, whether that's landfill gas, solar, wind, mostly hydroelectric. But look at your local water agencies. Water agencies have tremendous powers baked into their enabling documentation. They can generate energy, they can distribute energy, they can purchase energy. They've got a lot of flexibility in how they determine their portfolio. Another thing that the Water Agency did, again, very progressive, was they embraced the Endangered Species Act. That's very rare for a water agency. Most of the time, water agencies will sue the federal government to keep from having to comply with the Endangered Species Act. Now, this is a long-term process that these water agencies have to go through when they enter into a consultation with the federal government on how they're going to mitigate their impacts on endangered species. Water Agency entered into that with the Corps of Engineers, National Marine Fisheries Service, and over a 10-year process, figured out what the mitigations were for their impacts on those endangered species in the Russian River. And the last 8 years of my career, I spent building fish ladders and fish restoration projects on the Russian River and on Dry Creek. It's tremendously gratifying. Another thing we did was we sponsored, I don't know if we sponsored it, but we helped write and supported the legislation that formed the Regional Climate Protection Agency, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Lauren and what's her name? Carolyn are members of that organization. And finally, our board of directors took a look at what Marin County was doing with CCAs, and they decided, well, if Marin's doing it, how hard could it possibly be? And they said, okay, Water Agency, we're in an economic downturn here in 2011. We want you to do this because you have some cash in your reserves. Go ahead and start looking at forming Sonoma Clean Power. And they turned that over to me. You know, what could go wrong? Put a civil engineer in charge of an energy project. Well, it turned out okay. We have been around for a few years. I'm going to break with the tradition of keynote speakers, and I'm going to talk about a couple of the failures that we had at the Water Agency. Wave energy. We spent quite a bit of time looking at the coast of Sonoma and how we could possibly incorporate wave energy out there. We went so far as to apply for permits from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to do demonstration projects out there. And one thing we found out right away was that that was not going to be an easy task. I think I counted 23 separate permits from separate agencies you would need to get just to put a demonstration project in the water. We couldn't find the funding to do that. We applied for some grants. We weren't able to get that put together, so we had to abandon that project. But we learned a lot. The other project, and I know this is a favorite of Carolyn's, was Farms to Fuel. It was a project that, well, who knew there are 1 million chickens in Sonoma County? And each chicken, each day, produces a 1/4 pound of manure. That's 250,000 pounds of manure a day in Sonoma County. And as you all know, chicken manure is very powerful stuff. And we entered into a purchase agreement with the company that was going to build an anaerobic digester on one of our wastewater treatment sites. And we were going to buy that power from them. They were going to make fertilizer, and everybody was going to be just so happy about this. And what ended up happening is their financing fell through because the people who were going to be financing it had no confidence that there were going to continue to be 1 million chickens in Sonoma County for 20 years. So, lessons to be learned: make sure you have your feedstock very well nailed down before you enter into agreements with shady anaerobic digester builders. I forgot to advance the slide. That was very rude of me. Okay, who all knows what a CCA is? All right, skipping that slide. So we started investigating in 2012. That's when our feasibility study was completed. Began service in 2014, and now we've expanded into Mendocino County. And we're very proud of our resource. 42% of it is RPS compliant, and 90% of it is carbon free. Only 10% of our electricity is generated with natural gas. That's significantly more than PG&E, not the natural gas part, but the carbon free part. And just a quick map of our territory. Adding Mendocino, we did that just last June, and it added about, I think, 20% to our overall portfolio. Now, Claire wanted to make sure that I didn't just talk about me and stuff about me the whole time, so I have to actually tie this into the forum topic, which is matching supply with demand, preparing local governments for the rise of renewables and its impact on the grid. So, Drive Evergreen. This was a pilot that we started last year. And the reason we got involved in electric vehicles is more than half of Sonoma County's greenhouse gas emissions are due to transportation. And in essence, we're an agency that was formed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in Sonoma County. We pretty much got it nailed with the electricity supply from the last slide, but transportation is just a real tough nut to crack. So we thought, well, we're going to go ahead and try an incentive program and a bulk purchase program for electric vehicles. This is an idea we stole from Boulder, Colorado. Not Boulder, but the county of Boulder. They had done this and written a nice little paper about it, and we called them and got all their materials and tweaked what we wanted to kind of make it our own. It's what we do at Sonoma County. We're good at being second at things. And the pilot program ran from October 27th to January 6th last year. We had 2 dealers involved who we did an RFP to all the dealers in the county that sold electric vehicles and said, give us your best price. And a number of dealers responded, and we chose 2 to continue with that had the best discounts were offered to our customers. And that was BMW and Nissan. On top of those discounts, some of them up to $10,000 from both the manufacturer and the dealer, we decided to offer a $2,500 incentive to our regular customers. And then to our Care/Fira customers, we added another $2,500 on top of that. The program is designed to be as simple as possible for our customers. In order to participate, you simply go on our website, type in your account number. If we could verify that you're an account member or a customer of Sonoma Clean Powers, then we send you a certificate either by email or mail. You take that to the dealer, and the dealer knocks the $2,500 off the car's price. Simple as that. The process also ensures that the dealer is giving the correct discounts, because we have a third party go through all the contracts and leases, make sure all the discounts have been applied correctly, and then will they pay the dealer the $2,500 incentive. So kind of a triple verification that everything's being done correctly. Did I miss anything? I don't think so. So some of the results of that. Again, not advancing the slides correctly. Just point at me if I don't do this. So we issued 556 certificates. Of those certificates, 207 vehicles were sold. We had budgeted $1.5 million, and we only expended $605,000. 70% went to our standard customers and 30% to Care and Fira. There was an evaluation report that was done by the Center for Sustainable Energy. They are the third-party consultant that is working with us on this, and it's quite frankly the best report I've read in my professional career. It's very well worth following that link and checking that out. One of the things we learned from that was that 186 buyers were motivated by our program to purchase an electric vehicle. The remainder were already going to purchase a vehicle, and this was just pushed them over the edge. But we got 186 new people interested in electric vehicles. we thought was a step in the right direction. We also learned that people wanted more choice in their vehicles, not just Nissans and BMWs. There's two ends of the spectrum of affordability. So we're right now in the middle of our second phase of Drive Evergreen, and that was scheduled to run through October 31st. And if you drop down to the last bullet point, we have extended that through the end of November in order to help the victims of the fire up in Sonoma County. Many of the people well, not many. We've already gotten calls from people who said they purchased a vehicle 3 weeks ago and now it's gone. So they want to purchase another one. So we're going to continue to provide that incentive to those folks. And also, probably lost 10 or 12,000 vehicles. All those folks are looking for cars now too, and maybe that's just the motivation they needed to switch to electric. And so we're trying to accommodate that. So this year we have 7 dealerships involved with 9 different models. We have so far issued over 1,000 certificates, and 325 vehicles have been sold or leased as of this weekend. We did drop the incentive amount from $2,500 to $2,000, and the Carafira is now only $3,500 rather than $5,000. So again, following the solar industry, we're stepping down the incentives, and hopefully, as cars become more affordable, we won't have to incentivize. I'm going way too fast. I'll have to slow down, sorry. In conjunction with Drive Evergreen, we're doing what we call Clean Charge. This is where we are giving away charging stations to our customers. Every one of our customers is eligible for 2 charging stations. We will purchase the charging station. They are required to pay tax and the shipping and the installation cost. But charging stations we're doing are about $600–700, so that's still a pretty good bargain for our customers. All of these charging stations are JuiceNet enabled, and that's probably a copyrighted term from the company we're working with, eMotorworks. And that means that it can accept a signal to either ramp up or ramp down charging based on the needs of the grid. And and 600 or 700 of them have signed up to be a part of that JuiceNet process. We haven't gotten that figured out yet. Who knew that working with CAISO would be complicated? And so we were working through all the details of technical aggregators and scheduling coordinators and DRRS and DRP and DRRPS and any number of different acronyms to make that possible. Hopefully within the next 3 or 4 weeks, we will start sending signals to those charging stations and testing out how we can react to grid signals regarding demand response. So that's one of the more exciting things we're working on, because that's going to inform a lot of other things that we want to be involved in with demand response. Another program we're excited about is our workplace charging program. Everybody knows that we need to be using renewable energy during the day when it's available. That's also when it's going to be cheapest, when we all go to time of use rates in the next year or so. So we're pushing hard to try and develop some workplace charging programs. We've working with 6 local large businesses, including our junior college and the Indian Casino. Medtronic has 2 sites, and a couple of sites from a local Basin Street. They're property management, so they have a couple of large buildings that we're working with. And the idea is to locate 20 to 30 charging stations at these locations, and then have them grid connected to be able to time the charge to the middle of the day and have those people plug in, stay there, not have to move their cars, and just use those batteries as we need them to take charge off the grid. We're analyzing 6 sites. We'll assist in moving forward with 3 of them, and we're partnering with PG&E as much as we can to assist us with their program and the make ready that they're doing for charging stations. We have a number of other potential programs. We're looking at multi-unit dwelling EV charging. That's another tough nut to crack. And actually piggybacking on your BayREN MUD energy efficiency program to just hopefully move that, use the folks that are familiar with your program and adding this on as a ancillary possibility. On-bill financing, that's another kind of holy grail for folks that you can use your bill to pay off energy efficiency measures in your home. And we're getting closer to that. We've already done a basic study of that. Our billing system can handle it, but it's still a few months off if we get there. This fire has shifted all of our priorities at the moment. We're also investigating heat pump water heating, and that's one of the prime candidates for on-bill financing. So we're looking at the state of heat pump water heaters on our territory, whether our plumbers and contractors are familiar with the technology and what we need to do to get them more familiar with it. We're also looking at upstream incentives for that rather than customer incentives. So work with the manufacturer to keep the price down before it even gets into the showroom. And lastly, on this slide, it's the correct slide, residential storage. We're hoping to send out an RFI in the next week or so to look at what we can do, what's the state of residential storage, and how we can possibly incentivize that as well. And I'm cautiously optimistic about that. Again, given the time of use rates that are coming soon, that's going to be, particularly for solar customers and net energy metering folks, that residential storage is going to become, if not mandatory, very attractive to keeping their bills down once that time of use rate kicks in. Probably within 5 years, if not sooner. So I'm going to talk about a little bit more about the Sonoma County fires. Opportunity out of the ashes, Phoenix rising, all of the cliches you can think of. We're working with that. I say I've put 4,000 homes lost in our territory on this slide. I've found out in the last day or so it's closer to 6,000. That's devastating for a community, but it's also an opportunity to maybe do some new things, do some things a little differently. And we're working with the city of Santa Rosa right now to look at what we can do to put some reach codes in place in a short time frame. And the idea is to upgrade their code to the 2019 new standard, ZNE standard, much sooner than the January 1st, 2020 goal for that standard. There are some issues with that regarding cost effectiveness and the CEC and so on, but we're trying to work through those and working on ways to beat that cost effectiveness standard by providing incentives to go to ZNE. And right now, our agency is going to be committing a significant amount of money to that effort as an incentive program. But we're going to also be reaching out to state agencies, air districts, other folks to see if they're willing to use Sonoma County as a test bed to have an entire block of houses go immediately to that ZNE standard and see how that community reacts, what the uptake is, what the complaints are, and we're going to get complaints, but use that as a test bed. And stay tuned. That's going to be it's going to be an interesting ride. So unfortunately for the program, I'm wrapping up my presentation here, or maybe it's fortunate for the audience, I don't know. So the title of this program is Local Government, and Sonoma County, Sonoma Clean Power is absolutely local government. Our board of directors is made up of the city council people who are elected officials and from all of our constituents. We've looked at any number of ways to try and get our community ready for the switch to renewable energy and dealing with the duct curve, and all of the programs that I've talked about are a part of that. Drive Evergreen, Clean Charge, workplace charging, integrating heat pump water heaters, and building code acceleration. So keep an eye on us, learn from our mistakes, don't get involved in chicken manure. And I will be around all morning and on the panel later this morning, so I'll be happy to answer your questions at that time. Do I need to make an introduction to the next speaker? No? Oh, okay. Oh. That's the 6th bullet point. Don't talk too long. Any questions? Well, I hesitate to, and I will not criticize Spring Clean Energy because they helped us get started. And if they're not for their example, you wouldn't see the wave of CCAs that are coming. They have taken a different approach. They have made a concerted effort to go after the public goods charge money through the CPUC, and with varying degrees of success. We've chosen not to take that path at this point, mostly because the hill seems too steep. There needs to be some changes. Some people need to break through some barriers there, and we're concentrating more on our own business at this point. Our CEO, very interesting man, Jeff Cyphers. If you ever get a chance to hear him speak, he's much better than I am. I was supposed to elicit laughter, but it didn't. His theory is that we as a public agency in the position we're in, we should be risking capital. We should be out there trying things. We should be the cutting edge and not be afraid to have some failures. And that's perfect. That's the same type of attitude that the water agency had when I was there. So I'm enjoying the same attitude at Sonoma Clean Power. We've dedicated a certain amount of our reserves or our net income to our programs. Most of it goes to our, I think 75% of our net income goes to our reserves, and then a small portion of the 25% that's left goes to programs. And that's given me a budget of about $6 million this year to do good things. So I have the latitude to just, if I see something I want to do, we go out and do it. And if it's successful, great. If it's not, we've learned something. That's the attitude that it brings.
In terms of rebuilding post-fire, it seems that the insurance companies are going to be very key in this. Have you talked to them, and have you kind of talked about how that will all roll in terms of what you're doing, what the city is doing, what they're doing? Possibly, I know PG&E is interested in doing something there too with their California, I forget the name of the program, the CAP program. Anyway.
We have not reached out to the insurance companies. They are definitely on our list. There are so many of them that it's going to be difficult to herd those cats. And we're in the process of negotiating with a mediator or a facilitator to help us, not just with the insurance companies, but with the construction industry and with the neighborhood homeowners associations. All of that stuff, we're going to have to get our hands around it. At this point, we're just trying to do the groundwork for the code, what code revisions might be acceptable to the City Council and the County of Sonoma, and determining whether there's grant funding or funding available to help pay for those upgrades.
Another question, do you know how many non-residential buildings were destroyed
Say again?
Do you know how many non-residential buildings were destroyed?
There is that number out there. I think the total was something like 7,800 structures,
Right.
and I think we landed on over 6,000 residential.
So that's still quite a few non-res.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Right there.
Jenny Bird with BayREN. I just want to highlight the effort that the collaboration, Sonoma Clean Power with BayREN's multifamily program, because to me, it's just such a clear example of local governments working together. Those of us in the energy efficiency world with different funding sources know how siloed it is, which is really problematic given the really aggressive goals that the governor and the legislator have set. So I just want to commend you guys for having the knowledge of our program and saying that it was just such a natural fit to add on the EV education. So kudos to you guys as an example as the energy efficiency landscape, which Chris will talk about, is really changing in the 9 Bay Area counties. That you guys, in my mind, are a great example of leveraging local government programs, successes, and adding on.
Thank you.
And you're a great keynote speaker.
Hi, I'm just curious, are you working with the water agency together? Are you kind of creating any programs that would leverage both water conservation, energy conservation? You may talk about that if you are.
Right now, what we've done is we've contracted with the water agency to manage our energy education program. They have a fantastic water education program where they go out to elementary schools and teach the kids about water conservation so they can go home and bug the hell out of their parents about water conservation. And we intend to do the same thing with energy efficiency and electric vehicles and greenhouse gas emissions. So we've got a 1-year contract with them to try it out. I have no doubt that they're going to do a fantastic job. And that's right now the only collaboration we're working on. But we are working with them on this the rebuilding effort, so they will definitely be involved in that. Oh, floating solar. Yeah, that didn't show up on my slide, but we've Sonoma Clean Power has contracted with signed a power purchase agreement for, I think it's 12.5 megawatts of floating solar, and that solar will be floated on water agency recycled water storage ponds. So that's something that the water agency started when I was there, and its collaboration is still ongoing. And Lauren, I'm not sure I want a question from you.
Lauren Casey, Sonoma County Regional Climate Protection Authority, and I work with Cordel all the time. So you've got a room full of allies that are also working in renewables and integration of renewables. And I'm curious if there are any institutional or regulatory barriers that you guys are experiencing or working on that this group and this community can help address.
Well, it feels like we're under constant attack in the legislature, CCAs in general. And if you do hear from your local CCA that they need a letter of support, they need you to take a position on a bill, obviously make sure that that is in your best interest. But please pay attention, because we feel that we're a breath of fresh air in the energy industry, and we truly work as a local agency and take care of local issues the way that IOUs are not set up to do. And it would be a shame if that was stunted or curtailed through inattention at the legislative level. Any more questions?
600 cars so far. How many customers overall do you have? So 600 cars for...
Not a very large percentage of our customer base.
Thank you.
No.
And the reason for that is?
The reason for that is people don't want to give up their gas cars. What we did see with our incentive program is last year we talked to the Nissan dealer, and Nissan dealer was selling about 5 cars a month. And in the 10 weeks that we had our program going, he sold 157. So our goal is to get more out there. The more people are exposed to electric vehicles, the more they understand that they're not, the devil. They're fun to drive, they're economical, they make sense for most people's driving habits. And a lot of the sales that we saw last year were word of mouth from other EV owners talking to their neighbors, giving them rides, that sort of thing. We've been on and off working with Uber and Lyft on incentivizing their drivers to drive electric in Sonoma and Mendocino counties. We're struggling with that. They're interesting groups, but hopefully someday soon we'll have that type of an incentive program. We're talking about 25 cents a mile. We would incentivize Uber drivers to drive electric. And it's all about getting people's butts in the seats and getting them experience and getting away from the stigma that electric vehicles can't do the range, they're not fun to drive, they're slow, they're not slow. So that's our motivation behind doing this program.